Hello everyone and welcome to Knee Jerk Reactions, the review series in two parts where I first give you my unfiltered emotional reaction to something, then I go away, I think about it, I read your comments, I listen to other reviewers' critiques, and then I come back, do a proper review and see if my opinion has changed. And before I get into WandaVision, I want to thank all of you for your great suggestions on my last video, because with a movie, it is really easy to just watch the whole movie right through and then, like I said, go away, think about it, do all my stuff, and then come back with a proper review. But with a TV series, you already have time to think about it episode to episode. But a lot of you clever people told me, why don't you watch the first half of the season, then come and give your reaction, then go away, watch the rest of the season, and do all the rest of the things and come back with a full review of the full season. And I thought, yeah, not only does that give me a chance to allow my opinion to settle, but it also means that I will get to see how the show has changed as well as how my opinion has changed. So thanks very much everyone, that was a really good idea. So, on to WandaVision. Now, if you want a non-spoiler review, I'm just going to tell you, if you like Marvel, if you like Wanda, if you like Vision, if you have a fondness for the 50s sitcom formula and want to see people gently ribbing it, this is a good show to watch. And also, if you have patience for a show, if you see something and think, this is kind of strange, I don't know if I'm quite getting into it, but are willing to take someone at their word when they say it does get more interesting, it does have a payoff, then again, I'd say definitely give it a chance. And also with manga, with novels, with other TV shows, they have to build their fan base up. So there's a lot of groundwork they have to do in order to gain an audience. Whereas that gives them the freedom to be more experimental because they don't have to lay so much groundwork. This is also the case with WandaVision, because the first two episodes are just a 50s sitcom and a 60s sitcom. That's it. There are a couple of little clues that something more sinister might be going on, but the actual show itself is just a sitcom for the first two episodes, and the third one, basically. So imagine a writer outside of Marvel or DC going to a financier and saying, I've got this really great idea for a show. This superhero is dealing with trauma, okay? And she has reality warping powers, and her trauma has basically created this entire reality that has brought her boyfriend back to life and given them a happily ever after and a simple sitcom life. It's like, okay, that sounds good. We can have like a really deep exploration of trauma and we can have a really interesting things done with her powers. Yeah, that sounds really good. So, how are you going to start this show? Well, I was thinking the first two episodes could just be the sitcom. Huh? Yeah, that'll give us time to really get into this woman's head and see how her trauma has affected her state of mind and how she wants the ideal life, and really establish all the characters that her trauma has created. Yeah, I get you, but we are marketing this as a superhero movie. You want me to allow you to make the first two episodes just plain old sitcoms. How the hell do you expect me to market that? So yeah, much like every other comic book property, WandaVision has the luxury of being experimental, because if you have Marvel's name on it, people are going to watch it anyway. So they'll say, oh, Marvel property, here's your money. Otherwise, they'd be so worried, how are we supposed to market this thing if it's a superhero show but the first two episodes are sitcoms? Okay, now on to spoilers. Like I said, the first two episodes are crucial to establishing this world and establishing Wanda's state of mind. And I never really held much fondness for 50s sitcoms, but maybe I'll check some of them out because I really liked what they did here. I mean, I wasn't laughing, but I had a smile all the way through, and the episodes did get genuine chuckles from me more than once. And it did have a kind of nostalgic charm to it. I know this idealized sitcom 50s never actually existed, but it is nice just to turn on the TV and see people whose biggest problem is not letting their neighbours find out they're married to an android. And the first episode is really just Wanda has to prepare a dinner for Vision's boss, and she has to use her powers to do it without letting the boss know that she's using her powers to do it. And the reason she has to use her powers is because she completely forgot. In fact, both Vision and her forgot that the boss was coming over. And if this dinner doesn't go well, Vision could get fired. And I was really impressed with the end of the dinner scene where they're asking Wanda and Vision questions and they can't answer them. Like, where are you from? When were you married? Why did you move here? And Wanda's like, we were married. And then when the boss starts choking and everyone is staying in character but also very visibly distressed by the situation, and then Wanda says, Vision, help him, and he goes immediately to do it, you get a serious clue as to who is in control here. And this is something that the first couple episodes do really well. It sets up that anyone who seems to threaten this reality is immediately taken out, which does create like a sense of danger, especially when the wife is so distressed and saying, stop it, stop it, stop it. And she seems to be looking at Wanda the entire time. I'd have to watch the episode again, but I was pretty sure she was looking at Wanda the entire time when she was saying that. When I look back and think about it, it is so much more effective than I initially thought. It gives you so much, and it's only when you see the next couple episodes that you realise how much it actually gave you. And I'll get to that when I talk about episode 4 and how the payoff is just so good. But on to episode 2. This is in the 60s where the town has a talent show. Wanda's trying to fit in with all the housewives of Westview. Speaking of which, I was actually trying to get a 50s style hairdo just to kind of in keep with the theme of the video and trying to look a little bit like Wanda, but that's not even kind of close. Yeah, I think Dottie would be very, very disappointed with me, and my husband's boss would not be impressed with me either. I think he would definitely be fired. But anyway, I thought the talent show portion of that episode was really funny. Like I said, I wasn't laughing out loud the entire time, but it did make me feel good watching it. I was chuckling. So even outside the superhero / Marvel thing, I do think there is value here in this show just as its own entity. And the third episode is when Wanda spontaneously becomes pregnant and they have to both get through the pregnancy and not let anybody find out that she is pregnant because, instant baby is not normal. And this is when, at the end, stuff starts to get real, because there's a character named Geraldine who has been kind of puttering about in the background, and she helps Wanda through her labour, but at the end, she seems to know stuff that actually happened in the real world, or the real world, because she mentions Ultron and how Wanda's brother was killed by him, and then Wanda suddenly turns on her and says, how did you know about Ultron? And this is when Geraldine gets ejected from the reality and thrown back into the real world. That is just brilliant. I was so happy when that happened because I had seen the other clues as to who was behind all this, but any of you who saw my trailer reaction will know that I was so disappointed because it looked like there was a bad guy that was doing all this, and I so wanted it to just be a manifestation of Wanda's trauma, and it is. Just in the second episode where the guy on the radio says, Wanda, who's doing this to you, Wanda? It's her. She is doing it. This whole thing is her. And it really puts me in mind of Professor X from Logan and shows how a neurological condition would affect someone with powers like that. And it's the same with mental illness and trauma. Like, how would someone's trauma affect their powers? Because if your powers are part of you, part of your biology, surely you would be affected. Because neurological illnesses, mental illnesses, they affect our bodies. So how would it affect someone's powers? That is so interesting, and I'm so glad that they did that. I was so happy to see that. And that is why I think those first episodes in the sitcom world were so important. Because now we know how Wanda's mind is working. Now we know why we're there. Now we know why everything is the way it is. She lost the love of her life, and she is now retreating into a fantasy world the way anyone with delusions would. Because the further someone is into the delusion, and the more someone tries to push back with reality, the further someone will retreat. So anyone who threatens this reality, like the boss by giving questions that Wanda can't answer, by Geraldine mentioning the world outside, anyone who threatens this reality is immediately pushed out, and Wanda retreats further and further back into it. And again, at the end of episode 3, it shows you that the neighbours are scared because they're trapped here. But if they say anything, then they don't know what's going to happen, because Wanda could just zap them out of existence. She is literally that powerful. So yeah, again, that setup was so important, and we realised there is real danger here. And episode 4 was the massive payoff episode. And normally I am not a fan of payoff being given to me in one go. I like it given to me in dribs and drabs, but because there was already so many little clues, and clues that you never actually in the beginning fully registered, they pay off in episode 4. It gives you so much payoff, and it is so satisfying. And as for Kat Dennings' character, I quite liked her here. Like, I thought she was okay in Thor. I didn't really like her that much as comic relief, but it made sense that she was there. She was Jane Foster's intern, and she was just in the right place at the right time. But when it got to Thor the Dark World, and any other places she popped up, I'm like, why the hell are you here? Like in Thor the Dark World, where she said, S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't calling me back, and I'm like, why the hell do you have S.H.I.E.L.D.'s number? You're a college student? Yeah, I was thinking this character just does not belong here. But in this episode, we see that she did go into astrophysics, and in the... My god, it's been 10 years since Thor. Thor was out in 2011. Oh my god. So in those years, she has become an astrophysicist. She does have the correct qualifications to be here, but her job seemed to be more of an analyst than a scientist, like analysing what was happening and then, giving feedback. And I did get that they said the radiation surrounding Wanda's universe was the same radiation that started the Big Bang. So she is there for a reason, it is established, but her function within the team really seems to be one of more like different kind of data analysis than scientific data analysis. But that's a small nitpick. I mean, she did have a proper function here, which I was really happy to see. And she does feel like the same character, but they've toned her down considerably. And one of the best things about this episode was Monica Rambeau. And if you don't know who Monica Rambeau is, she was the little girl in Captain Marvel. And not only does it pay off that character, but it also shows us the impact of the snap, or the blip as it's called in universe. It shows Monica Rambeau waking up in the hospital, and everyone who was snapped away is reappearing, and there's chaos going about, and it's so realistic, and everyone's saying, oh my god, people are coming back, my wife, she must be back, I've got to call my wife. And the doctors are scrambling about what's going on here, and they're like, where's my mother, where's my father, and it feels like chaotic. It feels exactly how someone would react in that situation. And the woman who plays Monica Rambeau, she's like, yeah, doctor, you were discharging my mum, where is she? Just not really fully taking in what exactly is going on, not using an analytical brain at that point, saying, something's going on here, so maybe my mother is somewhere else. No, she's just like, I want my mum, I want my mum, I want her now, where is she? She's just being discharged from cancer, I've got to take her home, I've got to look after her. And yeah, you wouldn't react in any logical sense at that point. And we just get the feeling of how everyone must have felt when everyone suddenly came back. And we find out that Maria Rambeau, who was her mum and Captain Marvel's best friend, died in the interim. So like, wow, the emotion there was just amazing. And this is partially her story as well, partially her trauma as well. Like, this is a show about trauma, and I think it handles it so well. And that's really the last thing I have to say about it. I enjoyed it so much, and I am so grateful that something this new, this fresh, has been introduced into Marvel, because I know people were getting sick of the formula before I was getting sick of it, but I thought, like, if we ended with Endgame, if I got nothing else after that, I would have been happy. I would have been happy that everything was wrapped up, that I had had payoffs to the characters I loved, that was the story closed. Because even though they had set up a lot of other good characters, I could kind of take or leave whether I wanted to see more of them. But this show, with its new way of telling people's stories, its new way of bringing in what previously happened in the previous arc and using it to tell the stories of the new characters, is just, it's brilliant. It's exactly what Marvel needs right now. Because if you look at a movie like Spider-Man Far From Home, they didn't really discuss the snap in any meaningful way. It was just kids going on their summer vacation. It was like nothing serious had actually happened. And I am so happy that we are actually seeing consequences. And one last thing is, I never really felt any connection for Wanda and Vision or their relationship, but this really made me care. I really felt like, again in episode 4, where they're watching the sitcom, even though it's their job and there's a reality out there and they have to figure out what's happening, they're still watching it kind of like a sitcom, and when something cute happens, they're like, aww. And that's exactly the way I reacted. I was just thinking, oh, they've got a nice home and they love each other and oh, it's just so cute. So yeah, I'm actually really invested in this couple now. Like, I wasn't really invested in any other romantic pairing in the Marvel Universe except potentially Steve and Peggy Carter. So this is the first time where I feel like a Marvel couple is really going to be successful, because like they say, superheroes, they can't be married, they can't be partners. I think there are very, very few superheroes who get married and stay married. But they really seem to be going with the idea that a happily married superhero pairing can be interesting. So again, that's another thing that's new about this. Just, this feels so fresh. I love it. So guys, what did you think of WandaVision? Did you like it? Did you think maybe the first 2 episodes were a little bit much? Did you not think we needed that much setup? If you agreed or disagreed with anything I said, let me know, because it's these comments that are vital for me to do the second part of this review system. And once again, everyone, thank you for your great suggestions on my last video on how to format this one, and I will see you again very soon.